Greetings, everybody. It's S.O.E once again, aka your boy Easy. Yes. So, it's Sunday, July 14th, 2013. And so, if you're alive in this day and time that I am, then you know that this is the day after the verdict in the George Zimmerman Trial for the murder of Trayvon Martin. I got a smile on my face because God has blessed me with another day. And in light of this case, I'm even more appreciative of that than usual, because as this case makes it clear, you know, it's open season on brothers like myself. And so I could easily not be here, you know, if anybody, you know, decided that they wanted otherwise. So I'm here, and I'm feeling good about that. I'm thankful for the opportunity to be a part of a positive change. The Sam Cooke knew was going to come, you know, and that Donny Hathaway sang about when he said, "Take it from me, you know, one day we'll all be free." They were right. We will be. It's a hell of a process, hundreds of years in the making, but we're gonna do it. And in this case, this incident, this case, everything around it, I think is an act of God. And I know that may sound very strange to some people, but you know, as I was taught when I was a youngin' in Baptist church, God works in mysterious ways. I absolutely believe that to be true. I'm no longer a member of the Baptist church, and I've got some of my own ideas now, but love of God, love of the divine, of creation that made us, never gone anywhere. But I think this case here brings to light the issue of civil rights, you know, which is very important that we explore this thing that we call civil rights. There was a civil rights movement back in the 50s and the 60s. You hear so much talk about civil rights. It's been a big topic of discussion in the last couple of years and the last couple of months due to the struggle that the LGBT community. I'm sorry, I don't know those letters right offhand. I mean it as no disrespect. It's just a lot of letters. You know, community, you know, they've been pushing for civil rights. And so, you know, people will say, yeah, civil rights, we need our civil rights. So I want to talk about what civil rights really are, what they don't do for people, and why in a nation where black people and any other group of people supposedly have civil rights, but these atrocities can happen to them anyway. Now, there's a difference. There's two kinds of rights, or there's maybe more than two kinds of rights, but the two kinds of rights we're going to talk about here are civil rights and human rights. Now, human rights are also sometimes referred to as natural rights, and these are the rights that any human being has as a creation of God, as creation of the divine force, the creator of all things. These are the rights that you have that, as Thomas Jefferson termed them in the Declaration of Independence, inalienable. Inalienable means that you cannot change them, you can't mess with them, you can't touch them. They're not anyone outside of yourselves. It's not something a privilege that anyone has granted you. Whereas civil rights are actually rights that really privileges that are granted to you by a society or a body of people. You know, it's sort of like when you walk into someone's house and they're being civil or they're being courteous to you. You know, they're extending this civility and this courtesy to you, but by no means are they obligated to do so. It's by their good grace, and they can take it back at any time. That's why civil rights in this country are voted on. Now, obviously, if these were rights, there would be no voting on them, because you can't vote on rights. Am I correct? Rights are rights. And there's a reason why in the 50s and 60s, all that was going on we had a civil rights movement instead of a human rights movement. We had a civil rights movement because America has never had the intention of extending actual rights to black people. And under the law, we do not have any rights that white people have to respect. So you have to understand this case right here, this Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman incident. This goes all the way back to the Constitution and the original framers of it and their intentions. And it was brought again to the surface in 1857 in a case called the Dred Scott ruling, the Dred Scott decision. Some of you may have heard of this, some may not. But long story short, Dred Scott was a free black man up in the North. He grew up in Illinois, then later lived in Wisconsin, right? Then I believe that he ended up in Missouri, which was a slave state at the time. And when he ended up in Missouri, he went to Missouri looking for his wife, I believe, that he was separated from. No. You know what? He was actually born a slave. He grew up as a slave, but then he got free. So then he went to Missouri looking for his wife. White man sees him, grabs him up, and decides that that Dred Scott is going to be his slave. Dred Scott protests this. He says, "I'm not a slave. I'm free. You can't just, take me and do what you will." So Dred Scott decides that, hey, I'm taking legal action. This country said that, hey, I'm a free person and I have these rights and I can't just be picked up and taken into bondage or whatever if I have my papers or whatever the case may be. So this case gets all the way to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court rules that a black man, essentially, or a black person in America has no rights to which a white person is bound to respect. And by the word bound, it means obligated or beholden to, meaning that they have to. You have no rights that white people have to respect. So in other words, you have maybe rights or privileges that white people can choose to extend to you, but nothing that white people have to respect. A lot of people falsely believe that this decision was overturned with the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. But in actuality, it never was overturned. They say, in effect, it was overturned by these amendments that made black people, quote unquote, citizens. But, the thing about law is that in order for something to be completely valid in a court of law, then it has to be explicitly stated and written down. There's no in effect or no implied meaning in law that anyone has to respect. That's why they have the term the letter of the law, following the letter of the law. So this decision was never actually overturned. And again, this is God talking to us because the case was actually Dred Scott v. Sanford, believe it or not. You can't make these kind of things up. Sanford, which we know this case occurred in Sanford, Florida. And so this is coming back to the forefront. It's a wake-up call for all my black people to realize where we are, where we've always been, that the image of our oppression, the appearance of it has changed, but the nature of it has always remained the same. And the first thing that we need to do now, it's not time to go out and riot. It's not time to go bust nobody over the head. Marching and protesting does not do a goddamn thing. But maybe make you feel better, make you feel like you're doing something. But you're just showing your weakness by going. It's another form of going to the white power structure, white supremacist power structure, for a solution and for recompense for your grievance, which obviously this case showed that's foolish. We as a community probably should have just killed Zimmerman when we first heard about it. When we saw that the police, for 44 or 45 days wouldn't arrest him, we should have known then what was going on and took him out ourselves. And that's the place that we got to get to. But that's a whole nother thing. I don't want to actually incite anybody because black people, we got a bad habit of getting reactionary instead of thinking, organizing, strategizing, and being proactive with our own program, and not letting this white supremacy power structure have us constantly reacting to what they're doing, and thus keeping us on the defensive. But you going and protesting and marching on Washington and all of that is more of the same. You still just asking, you know. We have to take what's rightfully ours and not take it from anyone else. You know, we have to take it from this essence of life itself that we are given. And by taking it, meaning living it. We need to live as free people amongst ourselves, make decisions as if we're free, and not as if we're bound to the rules and laws of some people that never had any goodwill, positive intentions for us. I'm gonna get a little deeper into these things, but like I said, baby steps. But first, you know, I want you guys to, you know, don't take what I'm saying, you know, don't take my word for it. You can look these things up. Look up the Dred Scott decision, find out about it. Look up the meanings of civil rights versus human rights. You know, and you'll see for yourself, you know, and to the skeptics that will say, oh, you know, you're being extreme and that's ridiculous. Okay, but the idea that these are all isolated incidents, you know, Trayvon Martin, Sean Bell, Diallo, Abner Louima, the kid that they made the movie about, Fruitvale Station, to, you know, Hurricane Katrina, to the Jena 6, to, you know, the war on drugs, to everything else, to killing all of our leaders. If you calculate all of that as just separate incidents that are not interrelated and part of a system and agenda, then I would say that your conclusion is illogical. Following what I'm saying, I think it puts all of these things in a context that makes sense, where you say, oh, that's why all these things happen. Of course, that makes sense. And, you know, some people love the lie that they've been fed, because, you know, their whole reality would be in turmoil without the lie. They've been living the lie their whole life and thinking the lie. But the truth shall set us free is, you know, is how the adage goes, and it's absolutely correct, you know, and that's why they say the devil is a liar, you know, and sometimes a beautiful liar. You know, a pretty lie can be, you know, quite tempting, and can be quite persuasive to, you know, this human psyche that already wants to believe that pretty lie. But there's an ugly truth that if we embrace, will lead us to beautiful freedom through a beautiful struggle. Much love to y'all. Stay with me, because I got some stuff for y'all. You know, got some good ideas, got some plans, some knowledge, some information to lead you to, from folks that are much smarter than I am and know much more than I do. But anyway, love is love.